Now we're looking at figure 21-65, and we're dealing with the T-code letters. Now notice table 500.8C deals with the NEC code letters. 500.8C is in car. But now the IC system is 500.9C. Now, notice T-code letters that you use here, say a T1 code letter, and then a T2, T3, T4, T5, and T6. If you had a T2, that'd be 300 degrees would be your surface temperature in Celsius for this piece of equipment, and that's what you have to use. But notice it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have your temperature that this equipment would need to operate below the ignition temperature of the gas or vapor. It's basically the IEC system. But now the NEC system, notice that we'll have a T1, T2, and then we'll have 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D there. We have more T-code letters on our equipment that's available to you with different temperatures than you would have in the IEC. And you can see that. You see how those temperatures are, the ignition temperature of your gas or vapor in Celsius that you see here. In other words, we could have a T2, which would be 300 degrees Celsius, but we could also pick up a B, C, or D. So you could get a T2D, T2D, and that would be 215, see? So we have a more variety of fixtures, for example, with T-code letters and equipment too. And that's what this is kind of illustrating to you here, is your T-code letters are used differently with the listing and labeling and marking of them than you'd have in the NEC system. And then as an example, see, if we're using table 505.9D as in dog 1, and we have a T-code letter, and the ignition temperature of that gas is rated at 300 degrees C, then notice table 505.9D1, 300 degrees Celsius requires a T2. Or you can say, well, if I got a T3, that'd be at 200. You see how much lower you are. So you could actually use this one here. But if we're selecting using the NEC system and we want 300, see, we could drop down to a T2A, which is 280, and we're below that. We have to be below it because this is the 80% rule here, see. So when I say 80%, we're not exceeding 80% of the ignition temperature of the gas or vapor, as illustrated in NFPA 497, table 4.4.2. But basically, that's what this illustration 21-65, I believe it is, yes, is illustrating to us, is the marking and that the T-code letters are different for IEC systems than NEC systems, and that's what this illustration is illustrating to the user of the NEC if they're in the zones or the divisions and they're selecting equipment based upon T-code letters.